I now had a different belief. Like it in that moment, it shifted my belief about what's possible.
Welcome to the Carla Show, a weekly podcast designed to dig into the lives of everyday people. People who are making a positive impact, people who have risen above and overcome obstacles. Insights and stories from ordinary individuals who inspire us all towards the truly extraordinary. Here's your host.
Hey, it's Carla, and I just loved my interview with Jason Meland. The things that he shared, the obstacles that he had to overcome, and not just like once or twice, but like over and over and over again. The tenacity of this guy is incredible. From like his first day in kindergarten, where he got bullied, his first day by all these fifth graders, hitting them with his backpacks and everything, to like being older and getting in trouble for different things, or his business failing, going bankrupt, all this kind of stuff. And yet he just kept going and kept going. And his whole story is really a story of transformation. And that's, just so incredible to see how he's transformed his life. And now he's looking to help other people transform their lives as well. So I know you're going to get a lot out of this. And some of the things that he said, I was just like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad you shared that. And he shared some things that he'd never shared before, because he knew, he just felt like it would be helpful to share it. And as he was sharing it, I was like, well, it was definitely helpful for me, and I know it'll be helpful for you too. So let's get into the conversation. Well, I've got Jason Meland on my podcast today, and I'm really excited to have Jason. So thank you, Jason, for being here, and welcome to the Carla Show.
I am so excited to be here. I've been listening to your episodes for like the last couple of months, and I am more than grateful to be here today.
Yeah, and you're calling in from Florida, so your weather is probably a little different than it is here, but it's actually pretty nice day today. But we're into fall, so it's pretty cold. Like it's like almost frosting at night, so it's getting cooler here. Do you get frost? You never get frost in Florida, do you?
We get hurricanes.
Yeah,
we get a lot of hurricanes right around now, so we're dealing with a little bit of a whole different scenario. But it does get a little chilly where I'm at in Florida. But I mean, that's in context to like what I'm used to. I'm sure like it's nothing in comparison to what you get.
Yeah. Well, it's all relative. Like wherever you are, your body sort of adapts to the temperature. So it's like, it's either, it feels cold or it feels warm, whatever. I mean, when my husband and I went to Florida, it was a really cold time. So everybody was like, there was nobody out anywhere. And anybody that you saw, they were all bundled up in their parkas. And it was cool for sure. And it was windy. But we were like, walking on the beach and like having a great time. And there's like nobody around. It's just the two of us. And we're like, well, actually, the cool weather is kind of helpful, because then we could have a little more like time together. So that was kind of nice. We didn't have people everywhere. The beach wasn't too busy.
The joke with Floridians is you'll see them on the beach with a sweater and pants, but they'll have sandals on.
Yeah, totally. Well, Jason, why don't you give our, like, people are like, well, why do you have this guy on? Tell us a little bit about what you do first. Like, what's your kind of business? What's your job, however you want to describe it?
Yeah, I mean, really simply, I'm a fitness coach consultant, really more than that, a little bit more into the lifestyle, where I help people transform their bodies, get rid of like stubborn fat, and really help them transform their mindset so they can live a little bit more to their fuller potential, really helping people step into that person that they're meant to become.
Awesome. I love it. Nice and articulate and clear too, Jason. That's perfect. Okay, well, let's take us back. So now you're this fitness, you're this nutrition guy. You help people with their mindset, with their body, getting rid of fat, that kind of stuff. But let's get some context. I mean, that's where you are now, but where did you start, Jason? Where did you grow up? What was your family like? Where did you go to school? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love sharing this story. I grew up in South Florida. I live right now in West Florida, which it's about four hours apart. So I'm near Tampa, and I grew up near Miami. And so I always say, people ask me now, they're like, Jason, you're this guy, you're fit, and you're an athlete. And I'm like, well, it wasn't always that way. I grew up very in a very good family, like a very loving family. I went to school in some decent schools, but in South Florida, it was very gang infested. And so, in every bit of the area, there was always little infusions of gangs. And so me being, very small and, a little bit on the goofy side growing up, definitely took a lot of abuse, a lot of physical, mental abuse. Definitely, had my my run-in with a lot of trouble growing up. And, which I'm sure we're going to get into today, but that's kind of what, led me down the path that I'm in, like right now.
So did you get like beat up like physically, or was it more teased, or like what did that look like, that kind of bullying?
Oh no, yeah, it was a lot of physical, a lot of both. It was a lot of both, a lot of mental, a lot of physical. I mean, there was a lot of weapons involved. I lived a very fearful life as a child,
Mm.
for the most part.
So everywhere you look, people were trying to pick on you, basically, trying to beat you up. Can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, definitely. So, it's not always easy to go into, but I'm more than happy to open up, a little bit here. So, just I would say from the age of, it really started in kindergarten. It really started in kindergarten. I
Mm.
remember, but the first day in school there, I was going into a bathroom stall. All right, my first day, fresh kindergartner in the bathroom stall, and there was a bunch of fifth graders. Once again, gang related. Gang started really young down there,
Gee.
and they were beating in the stall of the restrooms I was in until they finally got into me. They started just hitting me with backpacks and fists and all that. And that was really the start of everything. And it kind of happened continuously, since kindergarten all the way up in till high school, from going into different situations. There was just a lot of craziness down there to where we were caught into, not me personally, but I was caught in the middle of gunfights and knife fights and, just constant abuse. A lot of times gangs, when they had to initiate themselves, they would have to, single out somebody. And I just happened to be that person, quite a few times. So I took the brunt of some of those, violent acts, if you will.
So looking back now, Jason, do you think that there was anything about you, like why was it you that they seemed to be picking on, or did they just pick on everybody, or did you just kind of notice it more?
So it's maybe a little deep and something that I know now, which I didn't know back then. But I've really had a pretty deep spiritual journey in this past like year. And what I truly believe is that God gifted me with the ability to focus and to really make change in people's lives. I started like that as a child. I was very observant. I was very attentive, and I just noticed what people needed from a very young age. And I really believe that it was the devil's work. If you want to be honest, I
Mm.
really believe that like things were thrown at me more as a teacher. I didn't know that back then. It was more of like, why is this happening to me? But I now know now that I look back at that stuff as like, hey, this was a teaching for me to be able to now help people that have had to overcome, whether it be similar things or their own kind of adversities and their own mental or physical abuses or whatever it may have been for them. And so I really think that's why I was singled out. I know it's a little bit deep, but that's truly what I believe right now.
So when you look back on it now, you're like, there was a purpose to this.
I believe so. At least that's the way I want to think about it, right? Because we can observe things different ways. And I once heard a quote by somebody, I don't even remember who, but it was like, life can either happen to you or it can happen for you. And so I
Mm.
choose to believe that it happened for me. If you want to think more logically, analytically, I really believe that like it could have also been because I'm very short. I'm a short white dude, very small in a very predominant gang related community. And so I was an easy single out. I was an easy target for a lot of these people to just say, hey, let's go after him. He doesn't look dangerous. Like we'll take him
Right.
out.
Yeah, I could probably take that guy, but I don't know if that guy. Well, how tall are you, Jason?
I am 5'6".
5'6". Okay, so you're just a little bit taller than me. I'm like 5'4 3/4", somewhere in there. But it's all relative. I used to think I was so tall because in my family, everybody's short. And so I was like when I was the tallest girl, and I was like not much shorter than one of my brothers. So I felt very like quite tall. And then I met my husband's family. He's 6'2". Like they're all like 6 foot. Like his mom's I think 5'9" or whatever. Um, anyways, everybody was tall. So I suddenly felt super short. So it's funny how like depending on where you are. But yeah, no, that's cool. Okay, so tell us more. Like, how did that affect you as a student? I mean, like, were you able to even like focus on your studies and stuff, Jason?
I was not. And that's the unusual thing, right? Because I was actually very, very intelligent. I was very smart and I actually thought I was dumb. A lot
Mm.
of this I didn't learn until later on in life, but I really like thought I was dumb. And it was my inability to focus, and we talked about, I mentioned gang related. It wasn't all gang related. It just happens to be like just the students, right? The other kids noticed like, okay, this kid's not excelling as well in here. And so you start getting singled out by students, by all these other things, which inhibit your ability to therefore focus. And so while I always found that like I would ace things, I would really excel, I found myself really struggling to stay focused. You know, I think this is funny now, right? But like when I was in sixth grade, I had a college level reading like score, like really off the charts. My IQ was really, really high. What had suffered is my EQ. Like I just didn't understand how that worked at that age, which, you know, way off topic, which you don't need to go into, but I truly believe that they need to teach EQ in schools. And I think that would help a lot of kids out, you know, that are going through similar things to really help. So I didn't have that emotional fortitude to understand what was going on. So it really derailed a lot of my ability to actually effectively learn.
Yeah. So did you have anybody that stood up for you, Jason? Was there teachers, were there friends that stood up for you or not really?
I mean, I definitely had some of those people in my life. Obviously, they weren't always there during those times. You know, and my parents are really amazing. You know, they would always be there in my corner. You know, they can't always be, and I didn't always speak up. You know, I'm sure my parents still don't know to this day everything that like has happened to me because I just don't say it. I don't talk about it anymore. Um, so while I did have a few people, you know, I think at a very young age, which luckily I course corrected later in life, but I didn't trust anybody, right? I was like, there is no man on a white horse. Like nobody's coming to save me. Like it's up to me to be able to make things happen in order for me to survive this world.
So, I mean, clearly you probably even at a young age had a certain amount of tenacity because you still got up and went back to school, even though you knew probably each day you're like, okay, I wonder what kind of bag of tricks is in store for me today. Did you have a lot of fear then when you went to school? Like, was every day a fearful day for you, or did it kind of ebb and flow?
Most days were. There were times, depending on the specific year, you know, where it was a little bit of an ebb and flow. But I definitely feel like it was a lot of fear, like a
Mm,
lot of fear
sounds
growing
like
up,
it.
where I didn't know if what was going to happen that day. Like, you know, like I would have to avoid certain parts of school. You know, I would have to always kind of like look around the corner to see if like the kids were there, and you know it definitely was was not a fun experience for me, you know.
Yeah, well, I'm curious. I just want to ask you this question. Based on what you know now, because don't you have a kid right now?
Two.
You have 2 kids, okay. So based on what you know, like, from your experience, how would that affect you now as a father to put your kids in school? Like, what would you watch for? Because I mean, there's people watching here right now that are looking and saying, "Man, my kid has been bullied. I wonder what that's like." Or maybe they were bullied. They want to prevent their kids from being bullied. There's only so much a parent can do. You can't be there every second. But is there anything based on your experience that you would look for in a school, or things that you would look for in your kid to kind of indicate that maybe they're struggling with this?
Yeah, 100%. Everything can be found by looking at a person's atmosphere, right? So just being able to like really be attentive, and this is one of my superpowers that I've learned later in life, is that like being able to like just see somebody, right? Because you can typically, like as human beings, we learn through observation more than we learn through words. And so
Mm,
being able, that's how children learn, right? They learn by observing us and their
mhm.
environment, and they start picking up habits and behaviors, and it never ends, right? So you can see that in a child. You can see like their atmosphere. Do they look distracted, right? And you know, are they hiding out from you? Obviously, like at certain stages of growth, you know, going into teens and stuff like that, like people they're going to avoid, you know, certain situations. So it may be normal, but that's something that I really see a lot of in other people is their atmospheres will display everything. And I would say if your child is between the age of 8 and 12, that's where children are really developing their subconscious patterns. That's where they're truly being programmed. And so you should be able to know your child and what they were before that age or even during that age. And you could see the law of polarity will show like, hey, if your child was very outgoing and very bold and you notice they start declining and they start becoming more shy and reserved, there's probably something happening that's pulling them back, right?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah, absolutely. So as a father, how do you feel about your kids? Like if somebody was bullying them or how, like is there things that you're thinking already? Cuz your kids are still fairly young, aren't they? How old are your kids, Jason?
Really? Well, I can tell you right now. So my daughter's a little under 4. My son is just over 1.
Okay.
Um, I can tell you nobody's gonna mess with my daughter. She's a little bit of
Little
she's
Spitfire?
a wild, sassy one. So I think
Okay.
yeah, she's a spitfire. I think she's good. And my son, he's definitely my wife's side, they're real like the men in the family are real tall, and my son's already caught that gene that he's gonna be the doctor. As soon as he was a baby, was like, this kid's gonna be like a Michael Phelps, like tall and lean. So like
Okay, okay.
he's definitely got that the height gene.
That can help. But I mean, even though somebody's tall or short or big or small, they can get picked on
Correct.
regardless, right? But I know what you're saying. Sometimes I think when somebody's small,
Exactly.
it's just they're easier to pick on because you think, oh, I could maybe take them or whatever, right? So yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. So tell me now, like looking back, because you have a lot of insight on your childhood, you have a lot of things that you've had to overcome. What are some of those other things that you've had to overcome, Jason, in your life? And maybe it's because maybe it started when you were bullying as a kid, maybe it went into high school years. Like, what other obstacles? Can you share that with us? What did you have to overcome, Jason, to get from where you were then to where you are today?
Yeah. So, quite a lot, right? And I think that is something that's actually a blessing, in my life. And what I have found is over the years, I took a lot of that stuff, right? Because what I didn't mention, I was also a bench warmer growing up, right? But it all kind of led from that same belief that was instilled in me, like you're not good enough, you're not good enough,
So you wanted to play
And so
sports,
that
but
was
you
like
weren't, sorry, you wanted to play sports, but you weren't really given a chance. Okay, got it.
correct, which it all rooted from a fear, right? It was all from the same events. It just, I didn't know what I didn't know then. And so when I went into sports, I was very fearful of am I gonna, I don't subconsciously, it was just implanted into my head. And so that led to every area of my life unknowingly, right? And so what I found is over the years, entering into school, I end up becoming, or I'm sorry, entering into like the college era, I ended up becoming a firefighter. And I actually excelled for the first time in my life. I felt like on top of the world. I was one of the best firefighters. Like, I mean, I'm talking like awards, like I got medals, like saved people's lives. And I just felt in my element and I excelled in school there. And so that was probably when I really started to have my eyes opened to like what this world is. And
Mm.
I realized that all of the things growing up did not matter anymore. But, which we'll talk about in a second, I'm sure, I didn't yet let those patterns go because I didn't know how, which ended up causing a lot of problems. And so I don't know if you want me to go. We haven't even really talked much about this. I don't know if you want me to go into the whole fire department story,
Yeah,
because that's really probably one of the biggest things that I.
let's do it.
So
Because
I ended up working as a.
oh, I just want to say, Jason, um, like I admire you. I see that you are leveling up in your life. I see that you are like, really doing some big things to help other people. And so it's interesting because I'm seeing that, but on the other hand, you're this scared little kid that's getting picked on all the time. So there's obviously some pretty big things that have happened in that span to get you from that place to where you are now. So yeah, tell us all. I'm really interested to hear all the kind of nitty gritty of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, well, it all starts from this story. This is what I consider my origin story. This is
Okay.
where I had my rebirth. And so, 7.5 years I worked at the fire department. And as I mentioned, I really excelled. I was really good at what I did. I really loved my job. And the thing was, and I didn't know this back then, but what had happened was, this is what I know now that I'm into like psychology and in the brain and all that stuff as part of what I do. But like I found that like that belief of not being good enough still stuck in my mind subconsciously. And so I had developed poor habits because I just didn't think that like, I for lack of better words, I didn't believe that I actually could be somebody that was like worthy of having a good body or being able to have a great life. Like, it was crazy. And so I ended up gaining a lot of weight. I gained 53 pounds of weight. I was very stressed. I had poor money habits. So I was constantly like behind on bills, living paycheck to paycheck, even despite having a decent salary, right? And so overweight, unhealthy. And I kept telling myself, I was like, Jason, like, you got to do something about this. You got to do something about this. But I kept putting it off, you know, and I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with this, where we got a lot of stuff going on in life, right? Or at least perceived. And so we tell ourselves, like, we'll start later, you know, we'll do it later. That's what happened to me, right? Well, it was November 28th, I believe, 2009. And we had a call. It was a routine house fire. You know, we've been on plenty of these fires before. Like, back then we had a lot of them. And when we were on en route, we had reports of flames coming out of the house and two people they're supposed to be brothers, being trapped inside of the house. And so I was first in, myself and my partner. We had the engineers and the lieutenant, some of the other crew outside, just turning off the power. The thing was, this was an old like mobile home park. And a lot of times in these mobile home parks, at least up in North Florida where I was a firefighter, there was a lot of people that stole electricity from each other, right? Like, it's just the way it was up there. And so we had thought the power was off. We were doing our search and rescue. We were crawling beneath this smoke line. I mean, we could see flames coming out. I have the hose line. I'm the first one in. There's smoke everywhere. You can't see. Visibility was like very, very minimal. I'm tapping, trying to find doors, because we're trying to find these brothers at this point. We're not really spraying fire or anything like at that point, except what we had to cool ourselves down. And so finally I hit this doorway and I was moving around. There's all this stuff in the way. And so I started to push this, what we found out was a dryer. It was still hooked with electricity. I was sitting in a puddle of water that was leaking out of my hose. This electrical current went through my body, went out my back, hit my partner. I was knocked out. I was just dazed. My partner dragged me out of the house. I don't know if anybody's ever seen the movie Crank by Jason Statham, where like he had to like keep himself electrically jolted to stay alive. Well, they said my heart rate was like that in that movie. It was 220. There was just stars everywhere. Medics were on scene. They threw me in the back of the ambulance. They had to like immediately pump me with fluid, rush me to the hospital. And this is where my life changed. Like, I was laying down in the hospital. They had hooked me up to IVs because my liver and kidneys were so dehydrated. It went from, I was in my low 20s at that time. They said that I was, my kidneys and liver looked like they were like a 90-year-old man's. And so the doctor was looking down at me and he said, this is after a day or so in the hospital. They had already got me stabilized and stuff. He said, son, you are way too young to be this unhealthy. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. It was the most devastating feeling in the world. I don't know why, but it just hit me so hard. And so I truly believed that God had given me a second chance at life. He said, a normal person would have died. He's like, so I truly believe that I was spared for a specific reason. And I still hold that to me to this day. And so, long story short, after recovery, I couldn't work for a little while, workman's comp, but after recovery, I knew I had to make a change. It took me about 1.5 years, but I started to get myself throughout that 1.5 years back in shape. Started working out, started eating better. I started inspiring my shift mates. They started working out. They started eating better. And I realized this is it. This is what I'm supposed to do with my life. Is I'm supposed to help people who are stuck, who have had, whether they got electrocuted or whether they're just overcoming things in their life from their childhood, whatever. My purpose on this planet is to help people make that transformation, make that change. And so just like that, put my 2 weeks notice in, and I never looked back.
So why did you quit? What was your big reason for that?
The transformation. When I started seeing my shift mates starting to lose weight and starting to feel great again, just like I had after the whole recovery, the feeling that I got from watching somebody else transform their body or even their life in general, like not necessarily the body, but that was enough for me. And I knew I just felt it. Like, have you ever felt like this feeling that, you're like being called to do something, like,
Yeah.
and you have to do it. It's like this like nagging feeling, and it's like I couldn't shake it. You know, I obviously I have a little girl, right? So I watched the movie Frozen 2, and there's a part in there where like the voice is like, ah, I call it Elsa.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how I felt. Like I was like, I have to go to this voice. This voice is calling me. And
Yeah.
so it literally led me to, I didn't know what I was going to do. I honestly knew I wanted to help people in a different way. Because at the fire department, I saw a lot of people get hurt, die, burn, like crazy things. And I knew I wanted to get to people before that. Like I wanted to get to the people before they were drug addicts, or before they did meth and caught their house on fire. Like I wanted to help people before they got there, if there was any way. And I think that was like honestly my biggest reason was I was always there at the after effect. I wanted to try to be like the prescription before they got to that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like a preventative. And that's how I see myself too, Jason, is it's like preventative healthcare. It's like let's prevent the diabetes, let's prevent the heart attack, let's prevent the drugs and alcohol and things that can come in when people don't deal like what you like to deal with, especially is the mindset, right? So what did you do? Like that was a gutsy
Yeah.
move. That was a really gutsy move, Jason. You're suddenly like you quit your job, but you don't know what you're gonna do. And you're just kind of going for that calling, but you don't know what that's gonna look like. So what did you do?
Well, I left, and I was about 9 hours away from my hometown where I worked at the fire department. So it was a pretty long distance, but I had a nice, I had bought myself a nice red Camaro at the time, right? This is before all this happened. So I had no money. Like I said, I was living paycheck to paycheck because of decisions like buying a brand new Camaro when I didn't need to, right? But anyways, that's a younger 20s advice. But what I did is I sold my Camaro, and my dad had an old truck, gave me the truck. He's like, hey, you can have this. And so just left, went all the way back to South Florida. To be honest, I didn't figure it out. A lot of people are like, oh, it was a magical moment. You figured it out. I did not figure it out. Like it took me, that was in 2012, officially when I left. I had made the decision back in 2011, but I was officially 2012 when I left. And the next move was just odd end jobs. I worked like I just had to work these odd jobs just to make money. I almost became a bartender, which thank God I didn't. Like that's not even my scene. So I don't know what I was thinking, but I did all these different things, and I finally like got an ad for personal training, and I was like, yes, this is it. This is what I was doing at the fire department. I was helping my shift. This is it. This is what I'm supposed to do. And I took it. This was shortly after I moved back. Like I knew I wanted to be I didn't know exactly, like I didn't know I wanted to be a personal trainer. I just knew I wanted to help people in a different way. And so I started doing that. I went to training school, started working at a big box gym. And I decided about a year into it, just met my wife. And, I'm just going to go ahead and open this up. I don't normally share this story. I'm a little bit reluctant to share the story, but I feel like this may help some people too, because I had got everything figured out, I thought, right? Got my personal trainer, so I was making decent money in a big box gym. I'm not a big partier. I had some old shift mates come down to South Florida to hang out. So I drove out, hang out with them at the beach, had some drinks, said I'm not a big partier, had a few drinks, drove back home, got pulled over, got a DUI in my front yard. I was already at home. I was already out of my truck. And I had nothing to say. Like, I don't normally share this, but like that was probably a worse feeling than almost dying. Like it was probably worse because I had just got everything I thought in place for like my new life, and everything was stripped away from me. Like everything. I had little money. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with what a DUI costs, at least, in the USA, in Florida, but it's a lot of money, a lot of obligations. You have to attend a lot of different things, a lot of driving school. You have to go through counseling, a lot of things like that. And so at that time is when I had first met my wife, actually, right after that event. And she had like, funny story. I was, feeling kind of bad about myself, but I was like, I've got to own it. I just got to own, I got to own my mistake. You know, well, how can I overcome this? Like, what is this going to teach? I was very perceptive to these things, even like, what is this teaching me? Like, what? I'm like, and it's hard to think about that when you feel so devastated and so embarrassed, just so like emotionally like fatigued. And so walking home from the gym, like couldn't drive, right? Oh no, sorry, I was riding my bike home. It was raining, storming. Well, my wife, which she wasn't obviously back then, she knew me from the gym, but she was training with another client or another trainer. I'm sorry. She was just driving up. She saw me in the rain, all looking depressed because I was walking like lightning. It was like the scene of a movie, lightning, thundering. She's like, "Do you want to ride?" I said, "Yes." Well, that was the beginning of what history now for us. But I use that event. And the reason I'm sharing this because I really want to make sure I'm giving context to some of like the things, even despite me figuring it out. Like I thought, like things sidelined you in life, right? And this was a year and a half long event. This wasn't just like oops, Jason, you made a mistake. This was a year and a half long event, hundreds of hours of community service, about 60 hours, I want to say, don't quote me, but about 60 hours of having to do like sobriety schools and all of these things for somebody that didn't even drink often, right? This was a mistake. And I had to do everything that like a third degree felon would do, right? Like there's no like, oh, it's your, okay. No, you're in the mix of everything, right? And so seeing all that and seeing these people, like this is like what the reason I'm sharing this, seeing these people that I was surrounded by were a mess. Like some of them were like $1 million business owners, like, some of them were attorneys, mothers, fathers, and they were all a mess. They all made a mistake. Some of them were really deep, where others were just on the surface and they just made a little minor mistake like I did. Some of them, this is their third offense. Like some of them are really broken. And seeing that, I was like, this is it, man. I was like, this stupid, embarrassing, really costly mistake that I made is for me once again. I was like, I don't know why this is like, I don't know why this happened. Like, yes, besides the obvious, like you did something stupid, right? But I believe, as idiotic as it may sound, that like I was placed there to see the emotional states of these people, because now this is what I in part do. I help people break these things, right? So it's like, I would never have known that pain if I wasn't there and if I didn't experience it and I didn't see it. And so I truly believe like that was one of the biggest things that I've overcome, because part of me wanted to give up. Like part of me was just like, throw in the towel, like, let me just go do something, like, let me go back and work, try to get a job. Like, just like, I don't know what I wanted to do. Like, I was just, I almost threw in the towel because, but I really believe like that was it. And I connected the dots of it happened with my fire department crew that had come down, right? I connected these dots and I was like, God, I don't know why you're doing this, but I take it. I'm going to learn it. I'm going to learn this teaching, and I'm going to now try to see where I can apply this in my life. And it kind of leads me to the next leg of this journey.
Yeah, go. And you know what? I'm really glad you shared that, Jason, because and I see now why you shared it. Because so often we think and we hear people's stories, and sometimes people condense their story too much, and it sounds like, oh, you had this tough childhood, but then you had this accident and everything turned around and it was all perfect. And it's not like that. Like you can get sidelined by all kinds of things coming at you, but you were like true to your calling and you kept thinking like, no, this is you kept going in that direction despite constantly getting hit with one thing after another, right? So, I mean, that's a lesson for all of us to be like, if you know what your calling is and you have that purpose in your mind, don't let things like a lot of people, oh, well, I guess I shouldn't do that. No, no. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it just because things are hard. Maybe it means that you have to want it bad enough that you have to work even harder to go after it, right? Instead of being like, oh, well, if I'm hitting adversity, that must mean that that's not for me. No, like that's not what it can mean, right?
Yeah. And you would think it would be over right there, but it gets a little worse before it gets better.
Oh, tell
Gets a
us.
little bit worse. And I laugh now. I mean, it's really not funny, but I have to laugh at it now because I'm, you know, like thankfully in a much better spot in my life now, and I'm surrounded by love and abundance and joy. So I laugh now, but it's really not funny. So it's just by way of like exuding the bad circumstances. So, as you know, I was on American Ninja Warrior, and I guess I'll get into that, which what I'm going to tell you kind of leads into that whole scenario. For those of you who don't know, American Ninja Warrior is a show run by NBC in America, and they also have them in different countries as well, where it's an obstacle course race or competition. But so, all right, so as I overcome that, I had just started my business. I didn't say that before, but like right before I got the DUI, I had just started my business. It was a boot camp business running in local parks, and really wasn't much of a business yet, right? We had just gotten incorporated, and so we weren't making any money. It was just very, very fresh. And so I actually started having to, as obviously I had no car for about a year and a half. I had no ability to drive for a year and a half. And so I would ride my bicycle to these local parks. I had a little backpack and a duffel bag with weights, like some dumbbells and cones and bands. And so I would just go out to the parks. I would train some people. I started an ad on Groupon. I don't know if Groupon's still a thing, but got my first few clients. And then I started becoming a big name in the local area, like in the big box gym. So my boot camp blew up fast. Like we had 50, 60 people in the first few months. And it's like, okay, wow. Know nothing about business. So I was like, marketing? I'm marketing on Groupon. People were like, that's like, I had a business owner friend of mine is like, that's not marketing, Jason. I'm like, huh. And so I was like, I knew nothing. And so I ended up hiring a business coach, the first business coach back then, and really started learning. But like the thing was, I'd finally, like throughout that time, I had grown so fast and I didn't know anything, right? And so the city came down and was like, you can't operate a boot camp in a park, like, or you have to give us, 30% of your profits. And I was like, there's no way I could do that. Like I would go out of business. Like I can't. And so they were like, all right, well, let's see if we could find you somewhere. Long story short, I ended up finding an old hockey rink that was rented out by a soccer company. And we struck a deal. We opened up what was our outdoor fitness center, which was pretty popular in South Florida, the outdoor space. And so we ended up growing like over 150. We had 200. At one point, we had 250 members. And things were chaotic. Like I never experienced more stress in my life. And this is where it really started to break me down. Like, I know you run a gym, right? You still run it?
Yeah, like I do group classes, yes.
Yeah, so like I know you're very savvy and you know what you're doing. I did not know what I was doing. I pretended like I knew what I was doing, and I cared so much about helping people, but the business side of things just I did not like. I enjoy it so much now, which is crazy, but back then I just didn't know.
I
And
had
so
no idea.
stress,
I had no
overwhelm.
idea, Jason, when I started either. I had no clue what I was doing. So I totally get it. Totally get it.
That's probably why we connect so well. We get along because we're both like we've started off there. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to like an overwhelming sense of stress and overwhelm and just chaos, and it led me down. And connecting it down to like my childhood, what I know now is I didn't feel good enough. That had stuck with me, and I didn't learn this until I was on my spiritual journey, and I really discovered this. But to kind of like put some context into this, like we ended up going bankrupt in the business. Like I'm talking like bankrupt, straight up. $0, like zero, zip, like none, negative. They were negative money. So like I at that point, I don't know if anybody's listening to this has ever experienced something like that or something similar, right? That feeling, like the anxiety that you get when you know there's staff, there's people relying on you, families relying on you to be able to give to bring something to the table, but you just can't. There's nothing there. And so I had to go unpaid. Like I couldn't pay I paid my staff. I didn't want to let them go. I paid my staff. I didn't pay myself for like, my wife can probably tell you this a little bit better, but probably for close to a year. Zero, zip, nothing, just to keep my staff going and keep my business running. And I put a lot of stress on a relationship, right? And, while we weren't bankrupt the entire time, I lived in a state of stress and anxiety, extreme. When I say anxiety, I'm talking extreme anxiety, like wake up, heart pounding, having attacks, all kinds of things for over 6 years. Like I'm talking like it was just insanely brutal to like my eye would start twitching towards the end. My wife was like, you're gonna end up in the hospital. Like you got to do something. Well, the reason I share some of that is because she's like, I needed to get a getaway. I needed an outlet to try to find something. And that kind of led me to training Ninja Warrior, right? I was always interested in it and I've been watching it for years. And I was so stressed. My anxiety was just at an all-time high. And it's like, I have to have something as an outlet. And so that's what led me to start training. This is around 2017. I started training, pretty intensely. That has its own sets of adversities and stuff that go along with it. I don't know if you can see, like your hands damaging, not concussions, all kinds of stuff. But I, fortunately in 2018, 2018, I got called for the show based on my electrocution accident. Then I got cut. You think it's all good? Yeah. Hollywood is not, they're not nice. They're sometimes they emotional, they'll pull your heartstrings. I got cut for the show. So I ended up determined. I was like, you know what? This is my outlet. I'm not letting anything stop me from getting on the show. So I went and waited in a walk-on line where you have to go check in at 9 a.m. You can't leave until 5 p.m. I went and checked in every single day for 28 days. I got on the show where I got my ticket, right? We were sitting there, this is down in Miami, where they were filming that year. I was in the warm-up area. It was, we wait there all night. They film overnight, if people don't know that. And so I was waiting in the line to go, right? And so it was around 3 a.m. I was in the warm-up area. I had my chance. I saw the spotlight, the cameras, everything was there. And I was like, I'm going to do this. This is it. 3 people before me, and then it's my time. A nasty rainstorm came, and they had to shut down production. And they were just like, sorry. 3 people before my turn, right? I'd already made it on they gave me the competitor. Like, I was devastated, like really devastated. Like I'm talking like, and at this time I was very aware and attentive to like, okay, what's this teaching? What is this teaching me? Why are you doing this to me? Oh my God. And so it led to another string. That next year we really struggled in the business. And so I was like, you know what? I'm not going to get emotionally attached to this outcome this year. But I went and applied for the show. Again, I got calls. Then I got cut again. Like it's very competitive. There's thousands and thousands of people that apply. So they'll call people just to say, hey, we liked your video, make these changes, and then it's just what it is, right? And so what happened is this time they changed up the walk-on system. So it was a lottery system, meaning you go to the location, you put your name in a hat, and then you pick a ticket. And out of hundreds of people, if you get the ticket, you're in. They only pick 20 people, but typically only 10 to 15 people max will get a chance to run. So at least anywhere from 10 or at least 10 people won't get a chance to go, even if they got picked. So I flew out to Atlanta, just last minute decision, went out to Atlanta, Georgia, and put my name in the hat, and I got picked number 11, right? And so knowing that they picked the 10, usually 10 people are usually guaranteed to go out of a walk-on list. It's not guaranteed I go at 11. So I waited all night, 4 p.m. all the way to 4 a.m. 4 a.m. struck. They were like, okay, we're gonna do one more runner. And my heart's beating. Like, I swear, like, I have a tear coming down my eye. I was so devastated again. I'm not gonna go. They called my name. And so I was the last runner of the night, 4 a.m. It's freezing cold in Atlanta, for me at least, 19 or 20 degrees out. For a Florida boy, that's extremely cold. So I get up on stage, and I didn't do as well as I did, but as I anticipated. But it truly, like, it was like a life-changing moment. Like, it was like, you made it. Like, you made it. Like, all of this stuff, all of these years of failing, of doing all these things, I finally succeeded. I finally was able to stand on stage, had the crowd chanting my name. There were signs up, there was producers, there were lights. It was like the most euphoric feeling I've ever had. Like, in that moment, like, the world just, everything froze in time. And I was in like a tunnel vision. And the feeling still sticks with me to this day. And it was like that feeling of, like, you are good enough. Like, you're standing here on stage,
wow,
on a platform, a national platform that thousands of people try for every single year. And you're one of the people that get to, like, compete. And so that right there was like a transitional phase of my life, to where I now had a different belief. Like, in that moment, it shifted my belief about what's possible, like what can be accomplished when you focus, when you don't give up, when you can persevere, like. And like, I keep that bottled. Like, I keep it, like, right here in my heart. And this is like what I go into every single day with, is like, and I have, like, up here, I know you can't see it, but I have the reminders. I still have the ticket. I have everything here, because it's a constant reminder of, like, and this is for anybody out there listening, like, anything is possible. If, like, a scrawny kid that got beat up all the time and picked on and failed over and over and over again can land up on a national platform for, like, some of the most athletic, brutal competition in the world, then I believe that any single person listening to this can accomplish any of their dreams, like anything.
wow. I love that. I love that, Jason. I was just really riveted to everything that you were saying, because I could just imagine it, as you were explaining it. I was like, oh, totally. That's exactly what I would want to, like, yeah, that's incredible. So, like, what I see in this whole story is just that tenacity, that, like, getting up over and over again, reaching your goals, and not letting somebody or something or some circumstance get you down. You keep overcoming. And I think, man, if we all had that mindset, Jason, where we could just, like, no matter what happened, we were going to keep going to our goals and keep reaching our dreams, people wouldn't struggle so much. But what happens is people, they hit one obstacle and then they quit. Or maybe they hit 5 obstacles and they quit. But you hit a lot of obstacles, Jason, and you didn't quit. Like, you did not stop. So that's such a lesson for us, and for me too, because I mean, we all face these obstacles. We all face the adversity. Things happen. We get sidelined by different things. And sometimes we just feel like, is everything against me? Like, what's going on here? But when we keep pushing and we keep doing what we feel that we're called to do, we keep going for our purpose. It's amazing. Like you said, it's incredible what we can accomplish, what we can achieve. And Jason, I'm interested in something else because you were talking about, you talked about God a lot and you talked about your spiritual journey. We don't have a lot of time, but can you just give us a bit of an idea about that? Because I don't know exactly where you're at with your faith or what that looks like. Can you just describe, like, what was that spiritual journey like for you?
So it was really digging into, so it started with figuring out why all this happened, right? Like I had a mindset coach that basically opened my eyes to this world, and it was like, and this is something that I want to pass to everybody here, right? To not think that things are happening to you, and I know I said that before, but to understand that everything that's happened to myself, to all of you listening right now, is that it happened for you. And I know it's really difficult to understand and to take that sometimes when bad things happen, but it's something that like led me down that journey. And so I really dug into religion in general. Like I started reading a lot about different religions. I was super curious. You know, I come from more of a Catholic background. You know, my mom is Irish and stuff like that. So I was in a Catholic school growing up for a little while. I know I didn't mention that earlier, for a very brief time. And so that was like all I knew about religion. And so I really dove deep. I dove deep into different teachings that have been all the way back from like, you know, like 17, like below there. Like I have a few different books here that I really dug into. And what it's really said is like, no matter like I use the word God, right? But it doesn't matter if somebody believes in God or if I think that I don't think I know that you have to have faith in something. Because what I really dug into this journey is that if you think that it's all up to you, like you're gonna really struggle, because like God or whoever you believe in, they're like, that's who's making like the rules, right? That's who's given us our gifts, right? Like we all have unique gifts on this planet, and that's who, like, you need to have your faith in something higher than yourself, because if you don't, like, you're going to end up like me for part of my life, and you're going to be called the shoulder man. That's what my mindset coach called me. He said, "You're the shoulder man, Jason." I'm like, "Well, why is I'm the shoulder man? I'm the electric ninja." He's like, "No, you're the shoulder man." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You're holding the weight of the world on your shoulders." He's like, "You could see it's tensed in you." And he's like, "You need to have faith. Like you need to have faith in somebody or something outside of you." And so ever since he said that, like I have a little thing written that says, "Have faith and take action." Because if you think that it all is up to you, you're gonna struggle. But if you know, and you know, I don't know what most people's religions are that are listening to this, so I'm trying to keep it more general. But if you have faith in God, if you have faith in whoever it is you believe in, and realize that it's not you, you're going to succeed. And so that's for me, like where I stand is knowing that it's not up to me. Like I don't have to force anything. Like I can just let go of the resistance, and I can just trust. I can just have peace, knowing that like I am where I am right now for a reason. Like I am here. I don't have to try to force a situation anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I just let it be. And it's the most comforting feeling in the world to know that like you're not the one making the rules here. You're just the one taking the actions.
Yeah, and I love that you said that, Jason. I absolutely love that because there is a tension between Christians or people of faith of like letting God do everything, right? Like, so yes, you have to have faith, but you have to take action. Like, and I find that tension a lot too, because I do want to like let God lead me and direct me in my life, in my marriage, in my business, in everything. I want him to direct me, and I'm always asking him to direct me, and I'm looking for his leading in my life. Um, but at the same time, I'm not just sitting there being like, okay, God, like do your thing. I'm just going to hang out over here. It's like that idea that God guides a moving ship, right? So it's like you take action on the things that you feel that God is calling you to. And I really feel like that's so important because you get one thing or another. You get the people that are like, I pulled myself up by my own bootstraps. I'm doing this all by myself. I'm going to like save the world. And then you have the people that are like, God's just going to do it all. And I'm just going to passively sit here and let him do everything. So it's like there's a balance there. There's a balance of like we are supposed to work, we are supposed to take action. I mean, even in the Bible it says faith without works is dead, right? So you have to take action on your faith. You have to do something. But at the same time, like you said, knowing that God is ultimately in control of the outcome. And I think that's where that peace comes from, because it's like, I'm going to do the work. I'm going to do what I feel God is calling me to do. But at the end of the day, he's the one that determines the outcome. And I think there's so much peace. And like you said, you can just like let him, you could put all that weight on his shoulders and he can handle it. And you don't have to feel crushed by the weight of it, because it's a lot of weight. Living your life and trying to succeed in life, there's a lot of pressure. And I know that you understand that.
Yeah, absolutely 100%. It's everything, like we're given the tools and the gifts. It just, I think the end all be all here is, despite what we have been through in life, if we go back to the time between 8 and 12 years old, you will truly find whatever was taught to you then, that is either who you are now or you're the polar opposite. There's like no in between. So going back there, recognizing the patterns that have happened over your life, because like, as you can see with me throughout my story, I had a lot of the similar patterns happen until I finally broke it. Like there were shackles that just kept coming back and back and back in different ways. They manifested in my life in different ways. But I was finally, after 30 years, able to break the shackles, break them. And that was through faith and action. And finally, I figured it out. Like the break free combination, if you will, which is just developing better habits and changing your identity a little bit, right? And but you would never do that without action. Like, this action is the best teacher. Is when you act, you're gonna have immediate feedback. You're gonna have immediate feedback to whatever you just acted upon. And if you could just observe the feedback, don't judge it. Don't judge yourself or be like, oh my God, I'm totally not good enough. And just be like, all right, what is this teaching me? And then just be completely judgment free and just say, okay, what can we do next time? Like, how can we do this better? Or, what did this teach me and how can I apply this to my life, right? And that's, to me, like what truly got me from that beginning spot to like where I am now.
Yeah. I love everything that you share, Jason. And I love what you're doing to help people. So where do people go to find you if they want to learn more about you or just kind of connect with you, see what you're doing? I know you do videos quite often too on your news feed in Facebook. So where's the best place for people to go?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very active on Facebook. That's kind of my hangout spot. So under my name, Jason Meland, Meland. And that's where I'm at. So
Okay.
I'd love to be able to connect with you, just chat. And, hopefully you can get some value out of, what I'm doing.
Yeah, and if you can't find Jason for some reason, just message me or connect with me, and I'll hook you up with Jason, because I can I know where he's at. I can get you in touch with him. But yeah, thank you, Jason. I really loved everything that you shared, and I'm really looking forward to re-listening to this after, because I know there's so much good nuggets of truth in everything that you shared, and your whole story just unfolds the idea that there is so much more for you. You don't have to stay stuck in that, whatever it was happened at, between 8 and 12, these mindsets. You can totally overcome that. But it takes some work. And that's why maybe people need to connect with somebody like you, or somebody that can help them to get over some of those mindsets, some of that scarcity mindedness, some of those things from their past, maybe that's really holding them back. So anyways, thank you again so much, Jason. Really appreciated everything that you shared today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
This episode is brought to you by my company, Power Fitness Online. We are a tight-knit fitness community, and we guide you every step of the way to get fit and stay fit through our live workouts, nutrition coaching, and incredible support team. Go to powerfitnessedson.com to learn more. Thank you for tuning into the podcast today. If you enjoyed it, please leave a positive review on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Music, or wherever you're listening. And if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, I would love to see your comments. I would love to know what you think about this episode and interact with you. I love hearing from you. Once again, I'm Carla Rand, and this is The Carla Rand Show, and I can't wait to see you next week for our next episode.